In the heart of the vast African jungle, where the sunlight weaved golden patterns through the towering trees and the air was filled with the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves, lived a creature unlike any other, Anansi, the spider. But Anansi was no ordinary spider. While his 8 tiny legs spun delicate webs, it was his mind that was most remarkable. Across the jungle and even beyond, animals and humans alike knew of Anansi's great wisdom and cleverness. Anansi's home was a large baobab tree standing tall near a winding river. Its branches spread wide like welcoming arms, and its thick trunk was etched with stories of old, whispered by the winds and told in the crackling of fires at night. Every morning, Anansi would spin silken threads from branch to branch, crafting intricate patterns that glistened in the early sunlight. But his webs were more than just silk. They were the threads of tales and lessons that the jungle needed. One bright morning, as the jungle buzzed with life, a gathering of animals approached the baobab tree. First came Kwaku the tortoise, slow and steady with his wrinkled shell carrying the wisdom of many years. Following him was Amina, the old elephant whose deep, kind eyes had witnessed countless seasons. Then there was Badu, the lively monkey known for his playful tricks but also for his sharp instincts. Anansi, called Kwaku, his voice gentle but urgent, "We come with troubling news." The spider paused his weaving and listened as Kwaku continued. "The great river that nourishes our jungle has begun to dry. The waters that once flowed freely and gave life to every tree and creature now trickle faintly. If this continues, the jungle will wither, and many of us will suffer." Anansi's 8 eyes gleamed with concern. "The river is the lifeblood of our home," he said. "Without it, everything will perish. We must find the cause and fix it before the jungle dies." Amina trumpeted softly. "The rains have not come as they once did, and the river's source in the distant mountains seems weaker each day. Something has changed." Badu added with a nervous twitch, "There are whispers that the river spirit is angry, perhaps because we have forgotten the old ways, the ceremonies and respect she once demanded." Anansi nodded thoughtfully. "Then we must journey to the river's source and speak to this spirit. Only understanding her will lead us to a solution." The animals exchanged worried looks. The journey to the mountains was long and perilous, and none but Anansi dared to face the unknown alone. With a determined nod, Anansi prepared to set off. "I will go and speak to the river spirit. I will bring back her wisdom and find a way to save our jungle." As he began his journey, Anansi encountered many obstacles, crossing rivers that now seemed too fast and deep, avoiding predators hungry for an easy meal, and navigating dense forests thick with underbrush. Yet, with every challenge, his clever mind found a solution. At one point, Anansi came to a deep ravine, too wide to jump and too deep to climb down. The other animals had failed to cross this place, but Anansi, weaving a strong silk rope from his web, swung across with ease. Further along, the jungle changed. The trees grew sparse, replaced by rocky cliffs and dry soil. The air grew thinner and cooler as he approached the mountain's peak. Finally, near a sacred pool, he saw the water shimmer with a strange light. Suddenly, the pool rippled, and from its depths rose a glowing figure, the river spirit herself. Radiant and majestic, she seemed both kind and fierce. "Why have you come, little spider?" Her voice echoed like the rushing river. Anansi bowed humbly. "Great Spirit, I come on behalf of all who live in the jungle. The river is drying, and life here is at risk. We seek your wisdom to restore balance." June. Spirit's eyes softened. The river's flow has lessened because balance has been broken. Humans have taken too much without giving back, and the animals have forgotten their respect and rituals. Anansi listened closely. "What must we do to restore the balance?" The spirit replied, "Remember the old ceremonies. Teach respect for the earth and water, and live in harmony with nature. Only then will the river flow strong again." With new purpose, Anansi thanked the spirit and began his journey back to share the vital message. Anansi's journey back from the mountain was filled with a mixture of hope and worry. The words of the river spirit echoed in his mind like a song. The balance must be restored. Respect must be given back to the earth and water. But Anansi knew that delivering such a message to the jungle and nearby human villages would not be easy. Change is never welcomed without resistance. As he neared the jungle, Anansi found the animals gathered anxiously beneath the baobab tree where they had first met. Kwaku, Imina, Badu, and many others waited, their eyes filled with expectation. "Anansi, what did the river spirit say?" asked Kwaku, his voice steady but urgent. Anansi cleared his throat and began, "The river spirit told me the river's flow has lessened because the balance between nature and humans has been broken. The humans have taken more than they give, and the animals have forgotten the ceremonies and respect that once kept harmony." Amina raised her trunk to trumpet softly. "Then we must remind them, teach them the old ways again." Badu scratched, his head looking doubtful. "But how will the humans listen? They have grown careless, thinking the jungle and river will always be there." Anansi nodded. "That is the challenge. We must show them the consequences of neglect, but also give them a path back to respect and harmony." Word spread quickly through the jungle and beyond. Some humans living in the nearby villages welcomed Anansi's message, remembering the old traditions their ancestors had passed down. Others were skeptical or outright angry, believing that the jungle and river were there for their taking, not for demands or ceremonies. At the village market, Anansi met Kwame, a wise old man known for his knowledge of stories and customs. "Anansi," Kwame said, stroking his beard, "you bring an important message. But the world has changed. Many have forgotten the old ways, and some even mock them. You must find a way to remind them why respect is needed." Anansi smiled. "I will tell stories. Stories that show the power of balance and the danger of greed." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the fireflies lit the night air, Anansi gathered children and adults around the campfire. He spun tales of animals who had lost their homes because humans took too much, of rivers that dried up and skies that stopped raining. But he also told stories of hope, of how respect and ceremonies could bring rain, growth, and life. Many listened with wonder and began to remember the old ways, but not all were convinced. Some whispered behind their hands that these were just old tales, irrelevant in a changing world. The tension grew when some hunters in the village continued to cut trees without permission, and the farmers drained water from the river without care. The animals noticed the river grew thinner, the forest sparser. The balance was still fragile. One day, a group of villagers held a meeting near the river. Some argued that progress in farming must continue, even if the jungle suffered. Others called for a return to respect and harmony. Anansi attended quietly, weaving his silk threads into webs nearby, listening to every word. Finally he spoke. "If we do not listen to the spirit of the river, soon there will be no water for crops, no food for animals, and no life for anyone." A heated debate followed, but deep down many knew Anansi was right. The river was their lifeline. Meanwhile, in the jungle, Kwaku, Amina, and Badu worked tirelessly to revive the old ceremonies. They taught the younger animals the songs and dances that honored the river and earth. Slowly, the jungle began to heal. But Anansi knew the greatest test was still ahead, convincing the stubborn humans who controlled the land and water. He decided to visit the chief of the village, a proud man named Tano, known for his strong will and leadership. Tano listened to Anansi's plea but was hesitant. "Anansi, the jungle and river are important, but my people must survive. If I stop the farmers and hunters, many will go hungry." Anansi replied, "Chief Tano, the spirit of the river has warned us. Without water the crops will fail and hunger will be greater. But if we all work together, with respect and balance, the river will flow again and life will flourish." Tano sighed, torn between tradition and survival. "I will think on your words." Days passed and tensions rose as the river's flow weakened further. One night, as a fierce storm approached, Anansi felt a calling in the wind, a chance to show the village the power of harmony. The next morning, after the storm passed, the river swelled with fresh water. The village and jungle creatures saw the water rushing strong again. Many believed it was a sign, a reward for the ceremonies and respect shown. Chief Tano gathered the villagers and announced new rules to protect the river and forest, balancing the needs of people and nature. Anansi smiled quietly, knowing the path was still long but hopeful. The jungle, river, animals, and humans were slowly learning to live in harmony once more. After Chief Tano's decision to protect the river and forest, a cautious hope settled over the village and jungle alike. The new rules were written. The ceremonies revived, and the community seemed ready to embrace the change. Yet the true test of harmony was not in words or promises, but in actions and trust. Anansi watched closely from the shadows of the ancient trees. He knew that old habits and fears die slowly, and that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. One morning, as the sun filtered gently through the thick canopy, Anansi called a council beneath the great baobab tree. The animals gathered eagerly, alongside a few village elders who had become allies in the cause. "We have made a start," Anansi said, his 8 legs folded carefully, "but the river's spirit reminds us that balance is fragile. We must prove our commitment through deeds, not just words." Kwaku, the clever monkey, swung down and asked, "What must we do, Anansi? How can we show the humans and the jungle that we are worthy of trust?" Anansi's eyes glinted. "We will invite the village to a great festival, a celebration of the river and earth. But more than celebration, it will be a day of sharing and helping. The animals will assist the people in their work, and the humans will share their harvest with the animals." The animals buzzed with excitement. Amina the elephant trumpeted, and Badu the tortoise nodded slowly. Anansi continued, "This is a chance to rebuild the bridge between us. But remember, it will only work if everyone is honest and willing." The animals set to work immediately. The monkeys gathered fruits, the elephants carried heavy loads, and the birds flitted about spreading the news. In the village, word of the festival spread, and many prepared to participate, though some remained skeptical. On the morning of the festival, the village square blossomed with color. Baskets of food were laid out, drums began to beat, and children laughed as they danced around the fire. Anansi watched from his web nearby, pleased to see the unity growing. Yet, beneath the surface, tension lingered. Some villagers whispered doubts, and a few hunters eyed the forest with suspicion. As the festival progressed, a group of hunters decided to test the animals' goodwill. They ventured into the forest to hunt, ignoring the new rules. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the air. Kwaku had been caught in a trap set by the hunters. The animals rushed to free him, their trust shaken. Anansi hurried to the village, confronting the hunters. "Why do you betray the trust we have built?" One hunter sneered, "The jungle is ours to use. These animals are a nuisance." Anansi's voice hardened. "The river will not forgive such greed. If you harm the jungle, you harm yourselves." Chief Tano stepped forward, raising his hand for silence. "Enough. We agreed to protect the forest and river. This betrayal must end." The hunters grudgingly released their hold on the traps and returned to the village. That night, Anansi called. Another counsel. "Trust is earned, but it can be broken in a moment. We must be vigilant, patient, and forgiving if we are to heal." He proposed a new idea. "Let us form a patrol of animals and humans to watch over the jungle and river, ensuring respect and safety for all." The village elders agreed, and volunteers came forward from both sides. Days turned to weeks, and slowly the river and forest began to thrive. The animals and humans learned to cooperate, sharing the fruits of the land and protecting its sacred spaces. Anansi's stories spread farther than ever, reminding all who would listen that wisdom, respect, and balance are the true keys to life. 1. Evening. As the moon rose high and the jungle buzzed with life, Anansi sat quietly in his web, content. The road ahead would be long, but together they had taken the first step toward a future where nature and humans could live in harmony once more. The seasons passed gently over the village and jungle. The patrols of humans and animals became a familiar sight, weaving through the trees and along the riverbanks. Trust, once fragile, grew with every shared task and every respect shown. Anansi, ever watchful, knew the work was not yet complete. True harmony required more than rules. It needed wisdom passed down to all generations, a legacy that could endure beyond his own time. One crisp morning, the spider called for a gathering at the foot of the great baobab tree, the same place where the first council had met. The animals and villagers assembled, eager to hear what Anansi had to say. "My friends," Anansi began, "we have traveled a long path. The river sings more sweetly, the forest breathes more deeply, and the village smiles more brightly. But the greatest challenge is not the present, it is the future. The children of the village and the young animals of the jungle must learn to live as one with the earth." The elders nodded, their faces lined with hope and determination. Anansi continued, "Stories carry wisdom. They are the threads that bind us, that teach us how to live with honor, kindness, and courage. Today, I will share with you the greatest story of all, the story of Anansi the spider, who brought wisdom to the world." The crowd hushed, eyes wide. Anansi spun a delicate web of tales, recounting his clever tricks and lessons, not for mischief, but to reveal the truths hidden in life's challenges. He spoke of patience, humility, the importance of community, and the need to protect the balance between humans and nature. Children listened, captivated by the spider's stories, while adults reflected on their meaning. Among the listeners was a young girl named Sifa, whose curiosity sparkled like the stars. She approached Anansi after the gathering and asked, "How can I help keep the balance and share these stories?" Anansi smiled gently. "By listening, learning, and then telling. Each of you is a storyteller. Wisdom grows when it is shared." Inspired, Sifa began to collect the stories from the elders and animals alike, writing them down and retelling them in songs and plays for the village. Over the years, this tradition blossomed. Festivals of storytelling became as vital as those of harvest or planting. The children learned from the tales, growing into adults who respected the land and all who lived on it. The river remained pure, the forest rich with life, and the village prospered as a place where humans and nature walked, hand in hand. One day, many moons later, as Anansi rested on his web, he looked out over the thriving land and smiled. His mission was fulfilled, but his stories would live forever. The wisdom of Anansi the spider had become the heartbeat of the village and jungle, a shining thread woven through generations, reminding all that true strength comes not from power or greed, but from respect, kindness, and shared understanding. And so the legacy of Anansi's wisdom continued, whispered by the wind, sung by the rivers, and carried in the hearts of all who cherish the delicate dance between humankind and the earth.